The night Amanda Parker turned 65 years old, she stood in the middle of a rented event hall wearing a champagne-colored dress she'd charged to my husband's medical trust fund, smiling at 150 guests like she had built something worth celebrating. She hadn't. What she had built, over 22 years of quiet, calculated theft, was a case so airtight I could have had her arrested before the cake was served. I didn't do that. I waited. I let her introduce me to the microphone with all the warmth of a woman who believed she had already won. And then I clicked the projector remote. The first bank statement appeared on the screen behind me. Then the second. Then the 27th. Then the email where Amanda wrote in her own words that her disabled son, my husband, probably wouldn't live long enough to need the money she was stealing from him. I want you to stay with me through every single detail of this story. Because if you're the one who does everything for your family and gets nothing but grief in return, what happened in that room is going to feel like oxygen. My husband Michael is 49 years old and has been fighting severe kidney disease for more than a decade. He spends roughly 15 hours every week attached to a dialysis machine. He never complains. He works remotely, contributes to our household, and faces every medical setback with more grace than most healthy people manage on their best days. For 24 years, I organized his medical appointments, handled the insurance paperwork, drove him to dialysis before sunrise, and then went directly to my accounting job and put in a full day. I did this without asking for applause. I did it because he is my husband and I love him. His family watched me do all of this. Amanda watched. His brother Derek watched. And for 24 years, they smiled at me at holiday dinners and called me devoted, while they quietly decided that Michael's future was worth less than their own comfort. I didn't know the full scope of what they had done until Michael's father, Robert Parker, passed away 14 months ago. Robert was a quiet man. Methodical. He'd built a real estate and investment portfolio over a lifetime of careful decisions. Before his health declined, he'd done something important. He established a medical security trust for Michael. This wasn't symbolic. Michael's doctors had been clear for years that the progression of his kidney disease would eventually require either a transplant or significantly more aggressive and expensive treatment. Robert wanted his son protected. He put $550,000 into that trust specifically to cover whatever Michael might need that insurance wouldn't fully cover. Robert died in March. Amanda became the sole executor of the estate. Probate began. I'm an accountant. Amanda knew that. And for reasons I didn't understand at the time, she was very, very eager to keep me away from the paperwork. She hired her own attorney. She told me the paperwork was handled. She told me I didn't need to get involved. Then 6 weeks after Robert's death, a certified letter arrived at our house addressed to Michael. I opened it because Michael was at dialysis and the return address was a law firm I didn't recognize. The letter informed Michael that, according to documentation on file with the estate attorney, he had voluntarily surrendered his inheritance rights to the family trust in a notarized agreement signed 7 years earlier. I read that sentence 3 times. Michael had never told me anything about surrendering inheritance rights. He would have told me, I handle our finances. We have no financial secrets between us. I set the letter on the kitchen counter, poured myself a glass of water and sat down. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. What I felt was colder and more useful than either of those things. I thought, someone forged my husband's signature. And then I thought, I am going to prove it. When Michael came home from dialysis that evening, I was still at the kitchen table. He looked tired the way he always looks tired after treatment. Not defeated, just hollowed out for a few hours like the machine takes something extra along with everything else. He set his bag down. He asked me what was wrong because he can read my face after 24 years better than anyone alive. I slid the letter across the table. He read it once. Then he read it again. Then he put it down and didn't say anything for a long time. I watched him process it. Michael is the kind of man who goes very quiet when something truly serious happens. Not because he's shutting down, but because he's thinking through every angle before he speaks. I have always admired that about him. Finally he said, I never signed this. I said, I know. He looked at me. 7 years ago I was in the hospital twice. I was fighting infections. I wasn't signing legal documents. I know, I said again. Then something happened that I did not expect and was not prepared for. Michael put his face in his hands. Not dramatically. Quietly. The way someone does when they've held themselves together through too many hard things and one more has finally arrived. He said muffled, Jessica. I'm so sorry. 24 years of your life and my family. Stop, I said. I was around the table and next to him before he finished the sentence. Don't apologize for them. Not one word. This is not yours to be sorry for. He looked up. His eyes were wet but his voice was steadying. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be very thorough. He nodded once. The way he nods when he trusts me completely. Whatever you need from me, he said. Right now I just need you to not say a word to Amanda. Let her think the letter worked. He picked up the letter, looked at it one more time and set it back down. Okay. That was the last time the two of us discussed anything with anything other than complete focus. From that night forward, we were not a grieving couple. We were a team. Here is the thing about golden children in toxic families. They get so comfortable with the arrangement that they stop being careful. Derek Parker, 45 years old, unemployed by choice and funded by his mother's financial management decisions, had spent 2 decades operating under the assumption that Michael's illness made him less entitled to the family's resources. Derek never said this quietly. He said it the way people say things they've been told are true for so long they've stopped questioning it. 3 weeks after the certified letter arrived, Derek called me. He said he was checking in about the estate. He used words like transition and simplification. Then he said, Look, Jessica, you know how these situations go. Michael's situation is expensive. It's ongoing. Honestly, it's not fair to expect the whole estate to absorb that indefinitely. I said, Interesting perspective, Derek. He took that as agreement, because Derek has never in his life paid attention to tone. He kept going, Mom's been doing the right thing managing that trust practically. The money was always going to run dry. You know that. Michael knows that. It's not like he's going to live another 30 years. I wrote that sentence down in the notebook I kept specifically for this purpose. Word for word. With the date and time. Derek continued. Honestly, that trust money has basically been mine to inherit eventually anyway. That's just how Dad set things up. That was a lie. The trust document said nothing of the kind. But Derek had heard Amanda say it for so long that he believed it, which tells you everything you need to know about how this family operated. I said, Derek, I appreciate the call. He said, just keeping you in the loop. I hung up and added 4 more lines to my notebook. That call was the second gift Derek gave me after the email. Because when I later cross-referenced his statements with the trust withdrawal records, a pattern became clear. Derek knew. He wasn't an innocent recipient of his mother's generosity. He knew the money was Michael's and he took it anyway because he had decided somewhere along the way that Michael's life made him a smaller person with smaller claims. 2 weeks after that call, Derek left a voicemail for Michael. I heard it when Michael played it on speaker. Derek said, and I am not paraphrasing, Hey, just want to say if you're thinking about making any noise about the estate stuff, that's not going to go anywhere and it's just going to make things awkward for everyone at Christmas. Michael looked at me after the voicemail ended. I said, Save that. He saved it. Let me tell you about the moment the alarm finally went off in my head. Not when the letter arrived, but years earlier when I should have started paying attention. If you're the person in your family who holds everything together while someone else collects all the credit, stay with me because this part is going to sound familiar. Amanda had 2 sons, Michael and Derek. The favoritism was not subtle. Derek received a car at 22, another car at 27, a brand new truck at 31. Michael received birthday cards. Derek's credit card debt was paid off at least twice that I personally witnessed. Derek moved through a series of failed businesses: landscaping, food trucks, fitness equipment distribution, and every time one collapsed, Amanda was there with a check. I told myself it was her money to give. But Michael's trust fund was not Amanda's money. Michael was hospitalized in the autumn 7 years ago. A serious infection on top of his existing kidney condition. He spent 11 days in the hospital. I was there every day. I arranged coverage at work, slept in the chair beside his bed, managed every insurance claim from my laptop in the hospital cafeteria. One evening Amanda showed up. She stayed 40 minutes. Before she left, she said almost offhandedly, "Michael probably won't need all that trust money anyway. Kids with conditions like his usually don't make it to the age where it matters." I went still. I told myself she was grieving the idea of losing her son and speaking without thinking. I gave her the most charitable interpretation possible. I was wrong to do that. That sentence wasn't grief. It was rationalization. She had already been taking the money for years at that point. She was talking herself into continuing. I didn't know that then. I know it now because I have the emails. Let's talk about what I actually found. Because this is where the story stops being about feelings and starts being about facts. After the letter arrived, I hired my own attorney. Her name is Patricia Chow, and she is the kind of lawyer who reads financial documents the way other people read novels. For pleasure, because she knows the ending is always better when you've read every page. Together, we filed a formal request for complete trust account records going back to the trust's establishment date. Amanda's attorney objected. We went before a probate judge. The judge ordered full disclosure. The trust had been established with $550,000 in 2002. By 2024, with normal management and no distributions. Michael had never requested a single distribution. That account should have contained somewhere between $680,000 and $740,000. The actual balance? $223,000. More than $419,000 had been removed. I sat with that number for a long time. Then I started tracing where it went. The earliest withdrawal I found was dated March 14, 2003. $8,400. Destination: an auto dealership. Cross-referenced with vehicle registration records, this was the purchase date of a pickup truck registered to Derek Parker. The withdrawals escalated in a clear pattern. Derek's failures triggered Amanda's theft. Every time Derek's businesses needed equipment, Amanda withdrew from the trust. Every credit card bailout, every vacation, every business rescue, all of it sourced from funds designated for her disabled son's medical future. By 2008, the annual withdrawals averaged $18,000. By 2012, they averaged $24,000. The largest single withdrawal was $47,000 in October 2016. I know exactly what it paid for. Derek's fitness equipment distribution venture, which collapsed inside 18 months. October 2016 is also the month Michael spent 9 days in the hospital following a dialysis complication. I'm going to say that again so it lands properly. Amanda withdrew $47,000 from Michael's medical security trust while Michael was in the hospital fighting a dialysis complication. While I sat beside his bed watching monitors and negotiating with insurance adjusters on my phone, his mother was authorizing a wire transfer of his medical safety net into his brother's business account. 112 separate transactions. 22 years. Every dollar traced. Every lie documented. Then Patricia's team requested email records through Discovery. Amanda and Derek had used a shared family email account for estate communication. Neither of them had deleted the thread history. Possibly because neither of them believed anyone would ever look. The email that destroyed Amanda's remaining credibility was dated September 2016, 2 weeks before that $47,000 withdrawal. Amanda wrote to Derek, "I'm going to move some money over from Michael's account to get your business started. Michael won't live long enough to need all this money anyway, And your father would have wanted you taken care of. Derek's reply came 4 minutes later. Good. Then there'll be more left for me when the time comes. Don't tell Jessica. Don't tell Jessica. I read that email at 11:30 at night alone, while Michael slept, and I felt something that I can only describe as the complete permanent end of any ambiguity I had ever carried about this family. We also had the forged inheritance document examined by a certified forensic specialist whose testimony has been accepted in federal court. His report came back in 17 days. 3 findings. The signature was not Michael's. The ink dated the document to 4 years ago, not 7. The notary stamp belonged to a notary who swore she had never notarized any document for Michael Parker. Amanda had fabricated an entire legal document, including a fraudulent notary seal, to steal her 6 sons' inheritance. That report went into its own folder. It was the last piece I needed. I had been protecting Michael from the full picture while I gathered evidence. He knew we were building a case. He didn't know the scale yet. One evening, about 3 weeks before the party, I sat him down at the dining room table. I had the spreadsheet open. I had the email printed. I had the forensic report on one side. I walked him through it all. Fully. Every withdrawal. Every year. Every destination. He didn't say anything for a long time. He looked at the spreadsheet the way you look at something that confirms a fear you've been carrying for years without ever fully naming it. When I got to the email, Amanda's words about him not living long enough, he exhaled slowly through his nose and looked at the ceiling for a moment. Then he looked at me. She was stealing from me while I was in the hospital, he said. Not a question. Yes. While you were sitting in that chair next to me. Yes. He was quiet again. Then he said something that broke me more than anything else in this entire 2-year ordeal. He said, Jessica, I spent my whole life trying not to be a burden to that woman. I worked through dialysis days. I never asked her for anything from that trust. Not once. I didn't want her to think I was taking advantage. I couldn't speak for a moment. He kept going. And the whole time he stopped. She was betting I wouldn't survive long enough to notice. I reached across the table and took his hand. She lost that bet, I said. He looked at the spreadsheet again. Then quietly he said, What do you need me to do? I said, Show up to her birthday party in your best jacket and let me do the rest. For the first time in weeks he almost smiled. Deal, he said. The most satisfying thing about what happened next is that Amanda spent the 3 months between my discovery and her birthday party genuinely believing she had won. She called Michael twice during that period, both times warm and maternal. She told him she was doing everything she could to make sure the estate transition was smooth. She told him she loved him. Michael said, Thank you, Mom. Then he hung up and looked at me without a word. Amanda planned her 65th birthday party with the enthusiasm of someone who believes they've secured their legacy. She rented a banquet hall in the nicest hotel in their city. 150 guests. Extended family, church friends, neighbors, former coworkers, her book club, her garden club. A caterer, a florist, a DJ. She asked me 2 months before the event if I would give a tribute speech. I said I would be honored. I spent the weeks before the party preparing 2 things simultaneously. The first was the legal package Patricia and I were completing for the probate court, filed 10 days before the party. The second was a folder for every table in the banquet hall. Each folder contained 4 pages. Page 1. The trust timeline, its original purpose, its original value. Page 2. A chart of withdrawals by year. Page 3. Cross-reference documents, vehicle registrations, business filings, credit card payments, each linked to a corresponding trust withdrawal by date and amount. Page 4. A screenshot of the email. I had 160 folders printed and bound at a copy shop 2 days before the party. Amanda had requested a screen for a slideshow of family photos. That screen was exactly what I needed. Derek called me the afternoon of the party. He wanted to know if Michael was coming. He said it with that particular flatness of someone who considers your existence an inconvenience. Then he said, "Mom's hoping the night doesn't become about Michael's situation. It's a celebration. Nobody wants the whole medical drama." I said, "Derek, I promise you, Michael's health will not be the focus of tonight." He seemed satisfied. He hung up. I sat for a moment. Then I went back to checking my folder count. That evening, Michael and I dressed carefully. He wore a jacket. He was steady in the way he gets when he has decided something. Not nervous, not angry, just settled. Before we left the house, he stopped in the hallway and looked at me. "Whatever happens in there," he said, "I want you to know. This is the first time in 24 years I feel like someone is actually in my corner." I said, "I've always been in your corner." "I know," he said. "But tonight everyone else is going to know it too." We drove to the hotel. We arrived at 6:45. My hotel contact had already placed the folders face down at each setting, the way you'd place a program at a formal dinner. The banquet hall was decorated in gold and cream. Floral centerpieces. A photo display near the entrance showed Amanda at various ages. Most of the prominent photos featured Derek. Amanda arrived at 7 in champagne silk, confident and radiant. She swept through the room like a woman who had never once considered that her accounting might come due. She saw me across the room and smiled. "Jessica, I'm so glad you're here." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. He kissed my cheek. Her perfume was expensive. I wondered briefly which account she'd used to pay for it. Derek found me minutes later. He gave me the look he always gave me, mild contempt wrapped in surface civility, and said quietly so no one else could hear, "Keep it dignified tonight. Mom's worked hard to have this night. Don't make it weird." I said, "Derek, I have been keeping things dignified for 24 years. Tonight I'm done." He frowned. "What does that mean?" I smiled. "Enjoy dinner." Dinner was served. The room settled. Amanda moved from table to table like royalty. The DJ played soft background music. Everything looked exactly like a 65th birthday party is supposed to look. At 8:15, Amanda's chosen MC, her church friend Barbara, announced it was time for tributes. Several people spoke first. Everyone said generous things. Amanda dabbed her eyes. Then Barbara said, "And now, someone who has been part of this family for 24 years. Amanda's devoted daughter-in-law, Jessica Parker." The room applauded. Amanda turned toward me from the head table, her face arranged in practiced warmth, and nodded with the confidence of a woman who believed she was about to hear gratitude. I walked to the podium. I looked out at 150 faces and I looked for one moment directly at Amanda. "Thank you, Barbara," I said. "I want to start by thanking Amanda for inviting me to speak tonight. I've been thinking about what to say for months. I decided the most important thing I could do was be honest. Because if there's one thing 24 years in this family has taught me, it's that the truth matters." I paused. Before I share what I've prepared, I'm going to change the slide on the projector. Amanda asked for photos tonight. What I'm going to show is a little different. I clicked the remote. The first image was not a photo. It was a page from the trust account statements. In the center, circled in red, wire transfer, March 14, 2003, $8,400. Beside it, a vehicle registration document for a 2003 Ford F-150, registered to Derek James Parker. The room went quiet. The uncertain quiet of people who aren't sure what they're looking at yet. I said calmly, "In March of 2003, $8,400 was transferred from Michael's medical trust fund. That same week, Derek purchased this vehicle. The money was supposed to pay for Michael's future medical care. Instead, it bought his brother a truck." Amanda's head turned toward me so fast I heard her chair scrape. I clicked to the next slide. In June of 2006, $14,000 was transferred to pay off Derek's credit card debt. In January of 2007, another $9,000 for the same purpose. In March of 2008, $11,200 for a vacation package to Cancun. Near the front, a woman reached for her folder. She opened it slowly. The person beside her leaned over to look. Over 22 years, 112 separate withdrawals were made from the trust account Robert Parker established to protect his disabled son. I have documented every single one. The folders at your tables contain the summary. The room moved. Pages turning. Quiet, spreading realization. Amanda stood up. Jessica. Her voice was controlled. Still presenting authority. This is not the time or the place. Amanda, I said pleasantly, I've been very patient about finding the right time and place. Please sit down. I'm not finished. She did not sit. But she looked at the room and saw people reading and she stopped speaking. Derek was on his feet. He was scanning the nearest tables, grabbing at the edges of folders. At the table closest to him, a woman, Amanda's garden club friend, pulled her folder to her chest and turned away from him without a word. Derek said loudly, "These documents are being completely misrepresented. You have no idea how trust management works." A man near the back said quietly but audibly, "Then explain it." Derek did not explain it. I clicked to the next slide. 2 documents side by side. On the left, Michael's hospital admission record, October 3, 2016, 9-day inpatient stay, dialysis complication. On the right, the trust account wire transfer, October 11, 2016, $47,000 to Derek Parker's business account. I said, Michael was in the hospital. He was there for 9 days. While I sat beside his bed while we were calling his doctors and managing his care, this $47,000 transfer was authorized. From his medical trust. To fund his brother's business. The room had the weight of held breath. Amanda said, "That money stayed in the family. Everything I did was for this family." Several people turned to look at her. I said, "Amanda, I want everyone here to hear your reasoning in your own words. These are from an email you sent to Derek in September of 2016. The slide appeared. Her email, full text, formatted clearly on the screen. "I'm going to move some money over from Michael's account to get your business started. Michael won't live long enough to need all this money anyway, and your father would have wanted you taken care of." Below it, Derek's reply. "Good. Then there'll be more left for me when the time comes. Don't tell Jessica." The DJ cut the music. I don't know if he made that decision consciously or if his hand just moved. But the silence that followed was absolute. A woman in the back row started to cry. Not loudly. Just her shoulders moving and her hand going to her mouth. Amanda's church friend, the woman who had given a glowing tribute 20 minutes earlier, pushed her chair back and stood up slowly. She looked at Amanda for a long moment. Then she walked toward the exit without saying a word to anyone. Not even goodbye. She simply left. That exit said more than anything else that happened that night. Derek slammed his hand on the nearest table. His fiancée Kira flinched. She took 2 steps sideways and then seemed to realize what she'd done. That she had instinctively created distance between herself and him in front of everyone, and she didn't step back. I said, "One last thing. About 4 months ago, a certified letter arrived at our home informing Michael that he had signed away his inheritance rights 7 years ago. The document appeared notarized. It appeared legal. Our forensic document examiner's report found 3 things. The slide appeared, the examiner's credentials, then his 3 findings, clean and bulleted. The signature did not match Michael's across 16 verified exemplars. The ink composition dated the document to 4 years ago, not 7. The notary stamp belonged to a notary who stated, under oath, she had never notarized any document for Michael Parker. Someone fabricated this document, I said, including a fraudulent notary seal. Our attorney filed the full evidentiary package with the probate court 10 days ago. Derek stopped making noise. Amanda had gone the color of the tablecloths. She was gripping the head table with both hands and scanning the room for a friendly face. The garden club friend was gone. Barbara had moved to the far side of the room. Robert's brother, who had driven from 2 states away for this party, was looking at Amanda the way you look at something you no longer recognize. Michael's cousin Thomas walked across the room, past the flower arrangements and the gold and cream decor, and put a hand on Michael's shoulder. He said quietly, "I'm sorry. I didn't know any of this." Michael nodded. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. I set the remote on the podium. "I spent 24 years being devoted to this family," I said. "I did it because Michael deserved to be loved and supported and protected. What I know now is that some people use the word family the way they use everything else, as a resource. Something to extract from quietly until there's nothing left." I looked at Amanda one last time. "Happy birthday, Amanda." Michael and I walked out together. His hand was in mine. His grip was steady. Thomas texted me from the parking lot before we'd even left the hotel property. He said Amanda tried to speak after we left. She said the documents were misrepresented. She said Jessica didn't understand estate law. She said everything had been done with the family's best interests in mind. Robert's old business associate, a man who had known Robert for 30 years and driven to the party specifically to honor his memory, stood up and said, "Amanda, Robert put that money there for Michael. This is not what he would have wanted." He picked up his jacket and left. Derek attempted to collect the folders from tables. He managed to grab 2 before people started putting them in their bags. Thomas held his up when Derek reached for it and said simply, "Don't." Derek's fiancée Kira left the building before him. She took her own car. According to Thomas, Derek stood in the parking lot afterward, not quite understanding what had just happened to his evening. The hotel staff began breaking down the centerpieces ahead of schedule. By 9:15 the room was mostly empty. Amanda sat alone at the head table. Then she left. The DJ packed up without playing another song. If you believe earned justice is better than keeping the peace, drop a comment and subscribe, because what happened to this family next is 22 years of consequences arriving all at once. Amanda was removed as trustee within 6 weeks of the party. The civil suit followed. The court ordered restitution of the full $327,000 in direct trust withdrawals, plus interest plus legal fees. To pay it, Amanda sold her house. The house Robert had built his life in. The house she had believed was hers to keep forever. It sold in 41 days. The social collapse was faster than the legal one. The church community was small and interconnected. The story could not be contained. People who had applauded my tribute speech 2 hours before the walkout were now avoiding Amanda at Sunday services. Within 3 months she stopped attending. The garden club dissolved its connection to her without a formal announcement. Robert's family, cousins and aunt, his brother, sent word through Thomas that they were done. Not dramatically. Not with a letter. Just, done. Amanda's world, which had been built on the performance of warmth and devotion, collapsed the moment the performance was over and nothing was underneath it. Derek filed for bankruptcy 9 months after the party. The vehicles purchased with trust money were subject to asset recovery proceedings. The second car. A recreational vehicle acquired in 2019 with a $31,000 trust withdrawal that Amanda had coded as estate management expenses. Gone. Kira ended the engagement quietly. She didn't announce it. She simply wasn't there anymore. Derek's friends, the ones who had enjoyed his generosity, which was never his to give, found reasons not to call. When you've built your social life on money that belonged to a dialysis patient, the foundation turns out to be exactly as solid as you'd expect. Michael received full control of the remaining trust assets. The court recovery, combined with what remained in the account, made his medical security real for the first time. Not theoretical. Not promised by a woman who was draining it. Real, documented, protected by a court-appointed trustee with legal obligation to manage it correctly. We retained the lake house. We kept the investment portfolio. We moved the following spring. Michael sits on the porch in the evenings now. He has a good doctor nearby. His treatments are stable. The background noise that had lived in our lives for years. The quiet financial dread of what happens if things escalate and the trust isn't there, is gone. I work remotely. I have a garden. I have mornings that belong entirely to me. It is the quietest and most completely peaceful my life has ever been. 7 months after the party, Amanda called. She called Michael's cell first. He let it go to voicemail. He played me the message. 6 minutes long. Amanda cried through most of it. She said she had made mistakes. She said she hoped Michael understood she always loved him. She said the situation had gotten out of hand and she hadn't meant for things to go this far. Michael deleted the message. He didn't seem angry when he did it. He seemed finished. There's a difference. Anger is hot and alive and wants something from the other person. Finished is just over. 3 weeks after that, Derek called me directly. He didn't apologize. He explained that his situation had become difficult and asked whether we could discuss resolution. He used that word. Resolution. As though 22 years of calculated theft and a bankruptcy filing were a misunderstanding that could be smoothed over in a phone call. I said, Derek, everything was resolved in court. He said, I'm talking about family. I said, so am I. I hung up. Neither of them called again. I've thought about the people who ask me if I feel guilty. Guilt requires that I wronged someone. I handed Amanda a projector remote and let her own emails do the work. I filed paperwork with a probate court with 2 decades of documented evidence attached. I protected my husband. The guilt question assumes I owe Amanda something for the performance she maintained while stealing from her son. That her warmth, her church attendance, her maternal devotion, that these were real enough to earn my silence. They were not real. I watched them be performed for 24 years and now I understand what they were. Cover. An elaborate, sustained performance designed to make questioning her unthinkable. She made it thinkable. I just did the math. For 24 years I believed that if I was loyal enough, patient enough, devoted enough, if I showed up for every hospital visit, managed every insurance claim, organized every family holiday, and kept my mouth shut about every slight and dismissal, that loyalty would eventually be recognized and returned. It wasn't going to be recognized and returned. It was going to be used until I ran out of it. There's a version of this story where I keep the peace. Where I receive that certified letter about the forged document, feel the gut punch of it, and then decide that confrontation is too messy, that family is complicated, that we could make do. There's a version where I protect Amanda from consequences because protecting people from consequences is what the reliable woman in the family is expected to do. That version ends with Amanda standing at her 75th birthday party having spent another decade taking from the people around her, because nothing taught her that there was a price. I chose a different version. My husband is alive. His medical care is funded. We live on a lake. We have mornings. And on a Tuesday night in September, in a hotel ballroom decorated in gold and cream, 150 people watched a woman in champagne silk read her own words on a projector screen and have no answer for any of them. One of those people was Derek, who stood in a parking lot alone afterward, finally understanding that his mother had not just stolen from his brother. She had stolen from both of them, Michael's future and Derek's chance to ever become a person worth knowing. I will never need anything more than that. The day I stopped protecting people who had spent 20 years exploiting my husband was the day our lives finally became ours. Don't let anyone tell you that earned justice isn't better than keeping a peace that only benefits the people breaking it.